Okay, so today we're going to talk about the first parable that occurs in the Lotus Sutra, and and we chose to do just small parts of the Lotus Sutra to give you a sense of what its flavor is. So and again, we're drawing on the translation by Gene Reeves and also his book. Stories from the Lotus Sutra, which if you are not sure, this is probably a good place to begin. If you want to delve into it more deeply, which is certainly up to you and it's not necessary. So anyway, last Sunday, Patty gave us a wonderful introduction to the Lotus Sutra, and you can see that it is packed with stories, meaning, and beauty. And some of it is historical, but some of it is also relevant to us and our situation today. And today we take a dip into the sutra by listening to a parable, which is a type of story whose narrative suggests a deeper meaning. And this is the first such story of the sutra and one of the most important. One thing to mention at the outset is that this section is given by the Buddha to Shariputra, our old friend from the Heart Sutra, which means a couple of things, I think. Shariputra, you remember, is one of the Buddha's most prominent students, and he's renowned for his intelligence and wisdom. But Shariputra also represents us. And this is first and foremost a conversation between a student and his teacher, the Buddha. And like us, he is interested, seeking, and wanting to learn. Shariputra also, as you remember, represents the Shravakas, a kind of a school, you could say, of early Buddhism, which is a kind of a scholastic philosophical approach in some ways, and which honored the Arhat, who has the person who's seen the true nature of nirvana and has attained enlightenment. And so, and the Lotus Sutra is a kind of antidote or possible correction to this idea. And there's a long introduction to the parable in which the Buddha expounds on the use of skillful means to teach the Dharma. The use of skillful means in imparting the Dharma is important because of the great variety of people who are longing to hear, understand, and find the liberation that it promises, and who bring different abilities and attitudes and backgrounds to the search. Shariputra has some difficulty understanding the approach of skillful means, and he asks for further explanation. And so the Buddha, choosing a means that he thinks will help Shariputra as an individual, this particular individual student, this Shravaka, says this. Let's see, page 49. So he teaches through this parable. This is it. And this is, of course, a translation. A rich man's house, now in a terrible state of repair, into which there is only one narrow gate, catches on fire with all of his many children playing inside. Though the father compassionately calls to them, urging them to leave the burning house, they are too absorbed in their play to listen to these warnings. He also considers carrying them out by force, but soon realizes that this too will not work. So he tells the children that if they go out quickly, outside the gate, they will find goat-drawn carriages, deer-drawn carriages, and ox-drawn carriages that he will give them to play with. Such rare playthings being just what they always wanted, the children rush outside to the great joy of the father, and soon ask him for the promised carriages. Instead, because he is rich and has many of them, he decides to give each of the children a much larger and fancier carriage drawn by a great white ox. The children, having received something even better than what they had expected, are overjoyed. So in some ways you can see it's a somewhat transparent metaphor, really. Because we can see the rich man representing the Buddha and his fatherly concern for the safety, freedom, and well-being of his children, us, his children, and the burning house as our lives of suffering, literally burning in California, crisis upon crisis in our nation and world. And the father tries various approaches to free the children from being consumed by the flames. He lovingly offers education or persuasion. He also thinks about using force to force them to come out. And finally, he lights on offering them these three vehicles, one for each of them, or for each group of them, maybe. And these vehicles represent historically the paths of the Shravaka, the Pratyeka Buddha, and the Bodhisattva. The Pratyeka Buddha is, let's see, I wrote that down because I always forget, is a type of Buddha, a lone Buddha who is awakened by his or her own efforts, for example, a forest monk. And having attracted them outside the burning house, he gives them each a much larger vehicle that they recognize as very beautiful and attractive. And this is the Mahayana, which literally means the great vehicle. So you can see that the Lotus Sutra is very, very important to, as a text, to understand what happens with this, you could say, reformation that was brought about in the Mahayana tradition. So but the three lesser vehicles, thought to represent these three groups they're not destroyed, they're included. They're valuable doorways, but are not the fullest, deepest expression of the Dharma as the Mahayana is proposed to be. As if they are also our skillful devices to express the Dharma, leading people with differing intuition and abilities toward the truth. Everyone can be included. No one is left to burn, the story suggests. And for me, this also suggests that people with different backgrounds, interests, attitudes, perhaps different philosophical or spiritual values are also included. And, we see in our own Sangha people who come from Native American traditions or have studied Native American traditions or come from Christianity or Judaism, and it's not required that we completely separate ourselves from our traditions. The Mahayana is open to including them also. The one Buddha vehicle, because sometimes I think of everybody actually being in one Buddha vehicle rather than each person having their separate, beautiful, white, ox-driven vehicle. It's not a separate alternative to other ways. It includes and integrates all of them. So let's look at go back and look at skillful means again for a moment, and the criteria of skillfulness. A skillful means to achieve an end must be appropriate to the person or people and the circumstances. And actually the Buddha expounds exactly what this includes. He says, this is because every existing thing has such characteristics, such a nature, such an embodiment, such powers, such actions, such causes, such conditions, such effects, such rewards and retributions, and yet such a complete fundamental coherence. And those of you who are Dogen fans will recognize that, because Dogen takes that word for word into parts of his writings. And you can go into a very deep analysis of what each of those things mean if you want to. But anyway, it includes an enormous variety of people and their experience and who they are. Okay, also, skillful means must be effective. It must work. It must actually offer something that's valuable. It must be for the sake of helping others. It must be something that the person who's offering it can do. And so one who's skillful asks, what needs to be done and what can I do? And so when I was thinking about this and reading these words, I thought, so I flashed on Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva of compassion, the one who hears the cries of the world, and with her or his 10,000 arms reaches to respond. And I flashed on the firefighters and the frontline workers that are dealing with our burning house right now. The father in the story also has other attributes that I thought about and maybe you will think of more. He's persistent. He doesn't give up. He has experience and wisdom and knowledge. He's committed to liberating his children. He's perceptive. He is attentive to what seems to be meaningful to the children. He's intuitive. He's humble. He finds out that his first efforts or first ideas are not really helpful. He's flexible. He changes. He's imaginative and creative. Of course, he's caring, and he's also accepting of the difference among other people. These are, of course, all aspects of a mature adult human being, we hope, but what we are called to be. Not perfect or complete necessarily, always willing to learn, but not arrogant. The Sutra specifically condemns arrogance, the closed mind. Always teachable, willing to learn and adapt, and open-minded. The beginner's mind that Suzuki Roshi speaks of. In this story, we might imagine ourselves as both the father and the children. After all, the father has been in the burning house and has escaped it. Maturity has its benefits. And when I thought about that, I thought about my dermatologist who uses the word mature for my aging skin. He uses the word mature instead of old. So we're always both the parent and the child. We're not permanently either one. We're all children at play, each in our own individual trance of suffering in a world on fire, through our attachments and our complacency. But even our attachments are gateways, as we know, because once we wake up, we recognize them as gateways. The children heard their father precisely because of the fire and because of their suffering, and saw in his loving attention the possibility of safety and freedom, which is what we all long for. And so we follow and we lead, we receive and we offer, we breathe in and we breathe out. Thank you.